Hey friends, this is the extraction portion of my elk killing. I've had one shower in the last 11 days, which was a couple days ago, so that's good. You guys got me at my little less than best. So I'm over here in Eastern Oregon in the Fossil unit, and I have killed my first elk. So I had a hair tag, which means I could shoot anything. And I found, we found a herd. There's a couple other people hunting around here. And we found a herd and we were chasing them around quite a bit. And finally, we found two bulls. I found two bulls in this little pocket. So, by little pocket, I mean this draw. He's down there. It's about 500 vertical feet from the top to the bottom. So right now I have with me some rope. I have my pack frame. I have my knives. A little bit about that later on. It's pretty funny. Anyway, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to run this rope down that hill so I have something to hold on to while I come back up. So here we are about halfway down this hill. I spent most of the day coming down around the corner there, and I spotted him down at the bottom of this draw down by that, I call it the crazy tree because there's little crazy limbs hanging off of it. So that's the landmark I used, and he was bedded down just about 10 yards the side of it. And so this is where I picked him up a little bit further up the hill, and I got to about here, and he was facing away. He was laying down, he was facing away, taking a nap. And I got to do about here. I had shimmied down the hills on my butt with my rifle laying across my lap for like 4 hours, and I had good wind, so that meant that he couldn't smell me. He couldn't hear me and couldn't see me because I was camoed up, and he was facing away, thank God. Anyway, so I got to about here though, and he heard something, or something happened, and he stood up. So he was standing, well, he was looking uphill, and I happened to be shielded by those two trees, a couple of those trees down there. And as long as I didn't move, he couldn't see me. And but I didn't have a shot yet either. And so he turned his head back up the canyon, and I took that opportunity to take a couple steps to the right, and then I had a little bit clearer shot on him. It was still about 80 yards down there, and I took a shot, and I hit him in the neck, and he folded up and fell down flat on the ground down there, and I let him sit for a bit. He was still alive, but he was struggling, and I was hoping that he'd bleed out and stay where he was laying, and I let him sit there for a bit. And when I thought I had a good opportunity to keep going, I took another couple steps, and he jumped up. And elk are very, very difficult to kill, so I was really glad that I had the chance to get as close as I did. You can get within 100 yards of an elk. It's not an easy task, and so I feel pretty good about myself, seeing as this is my first one I've ever killed, and I did it pretty much all by myself. So he was down there. When I stepped down a little bit further, he did get up, and I made my way down a little bit further, and I took another shot, and I got him in the lungs, and so he went down after that. And we're gonna keep making our way down there, and I'll show you where he's at. So we're almost there, but I just want you to get a little perspective. The end of the green or the blue rope is up there somewhere. They hiked out of here last night in the dark. I have pretty good night vision, but yeah, so this is where he was bedded down in here, and as you can see, it's pretty country, a little elky. He had a buddy with him. They were probably, it was a younger branch bull, and then this guy who was, it's a nice 5-point, so I'm guessing he was a satellite bull, and they had probably just gotten kicked out of the herd. There's a big herd around here. Saw them the other day, and it was about 100, maybe 120 animals. Look, that's one of his last poops, I think. So, come around here. My hope for today is to get him boned out and get him in game bags and get him up as far as I can. He ended up, it's pretty gory, you guys, so you might, I don't want to, you know, whatever. So you guys are my friends, you know the drill. Okay, so he piled up. It was about 2:30 last night, and you know, when you shoot something, you're hunting something, you don't really think about, well, you do, you try to, but then you don't, because you get all into it, you get pretty excited. But he ended up piling up against this tree. It's pretty gory, you guys. There's guts everywhere and blood and stuff, so. So, I got him all splayed out. That way he would dry, or cool off as quickly as possible. And get in there and get him opened up. It doesn't look like anything got into him last night, so that's good. I used his horns to hang him up in the tree. And what that did is I went ahead and I skinned him back and got as much of that open as I could and got him all opened up in there. Used my belt. Hold a leg. And this is a funny story. So I had left most of my stuff up on top because I didn't want to carry it with me, which was really stupid. But I did have this knife with me. Nicole will recognize that as a Christmas gift from two years ago. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, I don't recommend having to gut and skin an elk with a tiny carabiner knife that's probably meant to like open letters or something. But I still got it done. I think he's probably in good shape. It doesn't look like much right now because, well, he's all jacked up in this tree. But I'm gonna get to work here. Got my bone saw. I have to cut him up. Got a big tarp so I can have a place to lay him out. And if this is definitely gonna take 2 days. So today I'm hoping I can just get him in parts and get him started up the hill. So tomorrow will be a long day as well, but that's how it goes sometimes. You don't always get to shoot them by the road. Anyway, talk to you guys later. Bye. Morning, guys. This is camp. We skipped a little bit from last night, but I'll get to that in a minute. So everybody else pulled out yesterday morning, so I was here by myself. But this is camp. This is it's about an hour away from where I was actually hunting. We hunt this property as well, and we pulled 4 animals off of this piece of property, which I, in hindsight, maybe should have stayed here and hunted this more, but I found those 2 bulls and I hunted on them for about 3 days. So I was kind of invested at that point. Here is Casa de Valerie. I found a real nice shed. Wish I'd found the other half of it. And then there's my stovepipe and my pellet stove. Trailer's gonna get filled up here in a little bit. My truck looks like it's actually been used by somebody who uses trucks. And in the interest of staying warm, because it is about 20 degrees outside right now, we're gonna go inside my tent, which is sort of a disaster. There's the heart. It is frozen on top inside the tent, just to give you a little perspective. I don't know why I bring all this stuff, because I don't usually end up using much of it. There's the stove, there's the cot, there's the lots of clothes, and I'm gonna sit down here and tell you guys a story. So, after I left you guys last night, I went down, got busy with getting him boned out, and I was able to do that. Got him all boned out, both hindquarters, both front quarters, got the back straps off, got the tenderloins out, got as much of it as I could get, and got his head cut off. So it's sitting down there. I posted a picture of that. You guys probably see it already. And it was getting, I got the game bags drug over, had the tarp laid out, put the game bags on top of the tarp. I put some of my equipment that I had taken down to use there with it in the head, and I took the back straps and the tenderloins and put them on the pack frame. Pack frames are kind of interesting. They're made for this sort of thing. They're designed to carry heavy loads, and they have all these straps and pockets and whatnot, and it sits on your hips. And so when you pack out something heavy, they're pretty efficient in helping even the load and make it a little bit easier. So you can pack a lot out, but I would say probably packed out about 40 pounds last night with the gear and my gun. I had to leave I didn't have to, but I'd taken my gun and my binoculars pack off before I got started. And when I walked out after I'd shot him, got him gutted out, I couldn't, it was dark, so I couldn't see my gun. Excuse me. Couldn't see my gun. But I knew it was there, and I knew it was safe, and nothing was going to happen. It wasn't going to rain, so I wasn't too worried about it. So I did have to pack it out, though, and it's not really that light because it's got a bipod on it, which I'm going to take off. Anyway, so packed out, used the rope, and about this time it was getting pretty dark. And around here, when it gets dark, it gets dark. Like, there's no light. You've got stars and the moon's like crescent right now, so there's really not much. And I walked out, and my truck and my bike were parked out on kind of this promontory overlooking the canyon. So I got to my bike, and I went to drive to the truck, and I couldn't find it. Couldn't find my truck. It was dark. I drove around for a good half hour trying to find it. I know that sounds strange, but these are up, you know, up on these hills, the land slopes, and it's just hard to see things, especially when it's pitch black out. I had one flashlight, pretty good one, and I drove around and tried to find it for a while, but I was also dressed in, I had long johns on, a couple tops, you know me and my layering, but I had a sweatshirt on, and I didn't have good gloves, and so there's some guys up here logging. They're taking out a bunch of timber, and they have a camp with a bunch of trailers about 4 miles down the road. You pass them every time I would go out to hunt, and I was in trouble. Leave it to me to always come up with a different way to almost die at camp. This is one of the hard things about hunting by yourself, which I need to get better at, I guess. So I rode my bike, my quad, to the guys where the trailers were. And by this time, I couldn't feel my hands. I mean, I winter steelhead fish, and it was worse than anything I've ever had to deal with out there. So on my bike, I was shivering. My hands were ice cold. I was in trouble. I was scared. And I knew that basically if I didn't get the closest after that would have been the ranch farmhouse, and that was another 7 miles down the road. And I mean, I would have made it, but it would have been horrible. So I get there, and I get off the bike, and I'm moving real slow, and I knock on the door. I can hear there's a guy in there, and knock on the door, and he's like, "Come in." Like, you know, it's not weird to be out in the middle of nowhere and have somebody knock on your door. And I got my gun across my, I've forgotten I still had it on me, and I'm covered in blood. There's all over my pants, everything. And I stumble in there, and he gets up and he looks at me like I'm some crazy woman. And he's like, "What's up? What's going on?" And I'm like, and I all I could say was that I was really cold. And I was really scared. So he got me calmed down. I got my gun off, and I stood there for a minute, and he's like, you know, "What do you need? How, you know, what can we do?" And you know, my hands started to warm up, and I don't know if you've ever had your hands warm up after being really cold. It hurts bad. So I sat there, and, you know, he's a logger. These are the guys that were logging. And so he knew, I think, kind of what was happening, that I was just cold. And he got me sat down, and I was trying to work through the hand thing, and I'm crying, being a big mess. And he goes, "Let's get your hands warmed up." He goes, "Come over here." And he turned the cold water on, which actually, it was good, because and then slowly we got the hot water going. But I got my hands cleaned up. They're covered in blood still, and gave me some paper towels, and I sat on the couch, and he turned the heat up, and it's a nice trailer, and turned the heat up, and I sat there, and I was kind of a train wreck. You know, he was asking me, you know, where you know, what's going on, and I told him I'd been hunting and had an animal down in the canyon, and had gone back in today to take care of it. And so he got, you know, I'm just shaking, like just shivering, my whole body's just shaking. And he goes, "Hold on here." He goes, "Do you need anything? Can I get food?" And I said, "It's just something hot. Do you have something hot I could drink?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, hold on, I don't cook. I'll go get my boys." And so he goes out, and he comes back in. He's got his two boys with him. One of them's like 16, and one of them's maybe 20. And they come piling in, and they're just all happy, and they're
They were the neatest guys. They were just so sweet. And they wanted to know the story and what was going on. And I'm just finally could make a sentence again. And Ted and his son, Delancey, and they knew where my truck was, and so they just said, "Hey, we'll go get your truck, and you stay here and you get warmed up." So I stayed there with Mace, who is 16, and logs with his dad. It's pretty sweet little young man. So interesting to see these kids that work like this. You know, he was talked about. He could tell me everything about the logging operation. Drives a cat and helps load the logs and does all this stuff. And he told me what his brother did, and it's just a really neat thing. And so the Ted and the Lancey came back and they had found my truck, and it was like 18 degrees outside, and I got really lucky because it would have been bad. I probably would have had to use my button. But they got me warmed up, and I got in my truck, and I headed back to camp. So I made it back here last night, and turned on the stove, my wood stove, and I turned the heater on too, my Mr. Heater. Got it screaming hot in here. Like, when you get that cold, it's like you just don't think you can ever get warm enough. And I slept in, and the good news is the boys are going to help me today get the rest of that elk out. So having 2 young bucks go running down there, they'll probably do it in like 5 minutes. But everything's ready to go, and we should be able to make it out, hopefully in one trip. And we'll go from there. So I'll probably add a little bit more to the story later, but that's part of what happened.